Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half English on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel many times before, albeit the Swedish brewery far more frequently. And I'm sure I've actually reviewed a couple of collaborations involving these two breweries together, but I think that's been maybe about a year or two since we did those. But I would say that both of these breweries are best known for their New England Hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, and I've heard some very, very good things about this particular beer, so I have to say I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get the Gothenburg catchphrase in for the Gothenburg beers, channel tradition and all that jazz. And for this review then, we are going to return to the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri, who are one of the most reviewed breweries here on Rampant Lion Reviews. So this particular beer is called Rivers. It comes in at 8.5% ABV. It's a New England Hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it's brewed in collaboration with Track Brewing, who come from Manchester over in England. This beer was released as part of the local och småskalig assortment through Stigbergets here in Sweden for May of 2022. And like I said, this is supposed to be a very, very nice one, and both of these breweries are very well known for this style. So yeah, let's crack on with this then and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Stigbergets Bryggeri and from Track Brewing, and you will no doubt see more added to both of those lists in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the English beers. The Swedish one is being added to very regularly. The English one is being added to whenever I get the opportunity. Usually when I go back home to the motherland of Scotland, you'll see a few English beers put in there. But yeah, otherwise, please don't hesitate to get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Stigbergets and Track Brewing. We'll start with Stigbergets since these guys are the home brewery in this case. So, Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've told you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, and the company was founded by Nils Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So, these guys owned two bars that share the one kitchen. This is the Bar Kino and the Hagabjörn's Cafe, which can be found on Linegatan in the city, and they opened up back in 2007. So the building itself is an independent cinema. They do lots of kind of different independent films and things like this. So if you're interested to see what it looks like, you can go and check out my Out and About video that I did there back in about October of 2019, if I remember correctly. But it's definitely somewhere that you should go and check out. The Bar Kino is in the basement and the Hagabjörn's Cafe is in the kind of atrium of this cinema, but very, very nice. But originally, the idea that these guys had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, but this eventually led to them kegging the beer and selling it to other pubs, and they started bottling the beers in November of 2014. And if you go and check out some of my very early Stigbergets reviews, you'll see these beers in the bottles. But the original beers they were brewing were mainly English and German styles, but of course they really started to make their name when they focused on the more hoppy American styles of beer. So the original head brewer was Ole Andersson, who is one of the co-owners of OO Brewing. He stayed with them until about April of 2017, if memory serves me correctly, and he was replaced for a short period of time by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds over in Münster in Indiana, close to Chicago in the US. But soon after this, they moved to a new brewery at Partihallarna, where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches at a time, and they also started working on some sour beers during their time in that brewery as well. So at this point, they made the transition to 440ml cans, and this allowed them to export their beer a lot more. and a lot more widely. And this was where Stigbergets really started to build their name internationally, which was cool. But they now have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and Lucas Munraid, who used to work for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy breweries operating in the Gothenburg area. But as of summer 2020, they've moved to a new brewery in Ringen, and they're going to brew some lambic beer there, from what I understand. And they're saying that they're going to transform this brewery into what they call an experience brewery. They're going to have swimming facilities and I think a restaurant and things like that as well, which should be quite interesting. But they opened up a bar in Stockholm in about April or so of 2020, and they also opened up a folk ool shop in Gothenburg as well. For those of you watching abroad, folk ool is 3.5% and below. So anything that is 3.5% and below can be sold in the supermarkets or privately in Sweden. Anything above that has to go through Systembolaget, which is the national monopoly, or the national alcohol monopoly, I should say. But yeah, other than that, all I can tell you about Stigbergets Bryggeri is that as of May 2022, according to Untappd, these guys have produced 165 different kinds of beer. But yeah, like I said to you earlier, they are best known for their New England Hazy IPAs. They produced the new and improved GBG Beer Week beer, which was from an improvement of the recipe from 2016, and the Amazing Haze. Those are two of the Stigbergets beers that you must check out, and I would say that they are pretty easy to get hold of, to be honest with you. So do make sure that you check those out and have a go at them. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about about Stigbergets Bryggeri. So if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on to the English side of things then. So, Track Brewing. So, as I mentioned to you already, Track Brewing are based in Manchester in the Piccadilly area, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Sam Dyson. So, Sam studied maths and economics at university, and he homebrewed while he was studying because he said it was a source of cheap beer. But over time, he grew very fond of the science of brewing and the creativity it allowed him to have while still retaining a sort of central process. But after studying, he took a trip on his bike, travelling across 5 continents and 25 countries. I think this was in about 2008 that he did this, and the first part of his trip that he did was to go across the US, and it was there that he started visiting lots of different brewery tap rooms. But when he returned to England, he went to London and started working in the beer industry before he returned to Manchester. So when he went back to Manchester, he rented out an arch on Sheffield Street, very close to the Piccadilly station, and there was lots of food producers and things in there. I have been around that area, and that's somewhere that I do need to go and do some kind of out and about filming and things like that. But there's a whole lot of food producers in there, and there are quite a few little craft breweries based there now. But he was joined early on in this venture by Matt Dutton and Will Harris, and then the brewery have since gone on to become very highly decorated. These guys are one of the most respected New England IPA breweries in England these days. That's what they're most recognised for. They also have a tap room a few streets away from the brewery, and as of May 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 210 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. But yeah, Manchester is a very, very highly regarded beer city these days. Of course, you've got Cloudwater, who are one of the ones that really kind of started everything off. You've got Track, among others. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Track Brewing for the moment. But yeah, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can, of course, check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So, pardon me, yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of the beer itself. So, I'll just like have a little look at the artwork on this one once again before we open it up. There you can see, really nice. It looks a little bit like a kind of Swedish landscape, that, to be honest. Something a wee bit further up, you know, maybe in Dalarna or Jämtland, something like that. But yeah, there you can see the Stigbergets and the Track Brewing Company symbol. Yeah, plain silver top can on this one. And yeah, I think other than that, we don't really need to say too much about the can. 440 millilitres. I believe I paid like 55 Swedish krona for this. So that is roughly about maybe about £4.75 sterling, somewhere in the region of like €5.50, and I guess maybe like $6.50, $7 American for those of you watching in different places around the world. But yeah, 8.5%, New England double Imperial, whatever you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, let's crack this guy open and see how we get on. Very, very curious about this, and I do enjoy a good Stigbergets and also a good track New England IPA. So let's get this guy out into the glass and see what we get. So, whoop, there we go. Oh, you can smell the freshness of this already. Looks very, very nice. Alright then, let me just put the can there so that my OCD is happy. I always like the videos to look nice. But yeah, anyway, so this looks pretty good. So before the head disappears, you can see that the beer has poured with about a little more than a half finger of a kind of frothy and bumpy, I would say cream coloured head. There are one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass. There's a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it does look pretty nice. Kind of as you would expect for a New England IPA, to be honest with you. Now, for me, this beer looks a little bit like a kind of mix of like pineapple juice or mango juice or something like that. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices because they just look like that, to be honest. But the colour of this beer is definitely a very light kind of... It's leaning towards the paler end of the spectrum. Some of these beers can be very bright yellow, like a mango juice, but some of them can have that little bit more of a kind of pear thing, like, you know, an apricot or a pineapple juice or something like that. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts that you put in, will also affect the colour of the beer as well. But when it comes to IPAs and New England IPAs, you don't really have to care about those 2 variables. Now, the level of haze that you have in this one is pretty impressive. It's leaning toward the superior and gloopier end of the New England spectrum. And remember, the level of haze depends on the oak content, wheat content, and the yeast. And that can vary from brewery to brewery and even recipe to recipe. So there's no real rule relating to the ABV when it comes to the level of haze in these beers. But yeah, not a lot of visible carbonation in this one, as we said, and you can see the head has just kind of calmed down a little bit in the minute or two we've been looking at the beer. So yeah, other than that, I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the appearance of this one. So let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this. That does smell very nice. First impression of this beer. Yeah, first impression of this beer is that it's leaning toward the kind of oaty end of the New England spectrum. As I've said to you, for me there's 6 different elements of a New England IPA. You've got kind of farmhousey, yeasty character, rye-leaning, grainy character as well. These 2 are a bit more prominent in American brewed IPAs. And then you've got oaty creaminess, sweety bitiness, barley malt bread, and also sweetness. And I think those other variables are more common elsewhere. I think most of the New England IPAs that have come to other countries outside of the States are based on the kind of treehouse wheaty ones and the sort of the Trillium wheaty ones and the kind of the treehouse kind of more oaty creamy things. I think most New England style breweries outside of America kind of go more toward that sort of thing. But that said, you can find more farmhousey ones and things like that as well. But yeah, this is definitely a more oaty creamy IPA. Lovely big juicy fruity note, and it's got a nice bright green component to it. That's a basic first impression of the aroma. But let's go into that with a little bit more depth and just break it down for you. Yeah, beautiful smelling beer, this one. Yeah, so straight away, I'm going to say with this beer, backbone, you do get a little bit of that bread crust, you know, just a little kind of dash of bread crust. You get a wee, you do get a bit of the kind of white, the sort of soft, fluffy white bread coming out of it as well. But on top of that, you can smell the wheat. You can really smell the wheat in this one, thickening the beer out. At the back of the nose, you're definitely getting a wee bit of... At the back of the nose, you're definitely getting a little bit of that wheaty bitiness, but then you've got a nice big kind of oaty, creamy character to this beer as well. The oaty, I think it's you can, as I say, the main thing with this one for me in the malt base is you can smell the wheat thickening the beer out and making the bread a little bit more kind of prominent, but you've also got that big kind of oaty, creamy character coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, aroma wise, this beer is pretty damn nice, I have to say. Ticks all the boxes for me. On the malty side of things, I should say, we've not looked at the green component yet. Now, I would say with this beer, in terms of sweetness, There is, I do get a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy sort of thing. And there's almost like a wee teeny hint of like this kind of Parma Violet thing. And for those of you that don't know, Parma Violets, they're these wee Scottish sweets, or are they English? I don't know. But they're these wee sweets, and they're it's like, they taste like Skittles. They do taste like Skittles, and in the malt base, I can smell just a wee bit of this. There's some yeasts can give you this kind of, there are some yeasts that can really give you this, how do you say, this kind of, just this little sort of Parma Violet-y, skittly type thing, and I'm getting a wee bit of that in the malt base mixed in with the oats. You get a wee bit of this kind of skittly type aroma out of the malt base, but you've also got a wee bit of that butter candy, butterscotchy type thing as well, which is really interesting. So I have to say, I do really like how the aroma of this beer comes off from the malty side of things. Other than that, I don't think that there's too much to say about that. So let's look at the hoppy and fruity side of things then. So the green component for me, I do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one, but that's very, very minimal. For me, it's quite a big and bright floral aromaticity you get out of this one. Now, I think this beer is relying mainly on late addition and dry hopping. Remember, 3 types of hopping. Early addition hopping gives you mainly bitterness. Late addition hopping within the last half hour of the wort boil gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma. Dry hopping is completely flavour and aroma. West Coast IPAs use all 3. New England's tend to rely mainly on the latter 2, but with this one, with the depth of the and the brightness of the thing, I think this might have a little bit of early addition hop, but a good little bit of late addition hop as well. So yeah, you can smell that nice big bright floral aromaticity of this one. It does have a wee bit of a kind of oily, I'd say there's an oily grassiness to this, but I think the floral notes dominate the green component of the beer. And on the fruity side of things, I have to say as well, it really is very, very nice. I like how this, I do like how this beer goes about its business for sure. So the fruity side of things for me, I'd be very curious to know what hops are in this because it smells familiar. Yeah, so for me, definitely quite a bit of there's a bit of that stronger passion fruit in there. Definitely getting a wee bit of that, some stronger passion fruit. What else have we got? There's definitely, juicy mangoes. You're getting a bit of the kind of more dry things underneath, like a little bit of apricot. I do actually get a fair wee bit of an orangey character out of this one, and it's quite a bright, light and juicy orange. I don't, it's definitely not Idaho 7 that's in this, and I don't think it's Mosaic either. But the orangey notes that you get out of this are really nice and very bright, actually. I'd be very curious to know what the hop profile is in this one. It's very difficult to play guess the hops with beers these days because, it's very difficult to play guess the hops with beers these days because there are so many hops out there. But yeah, for me, bit of bright passion fruit, a lot of juicy mango in this one, some drier apricots and things like that underneath. But then I do start to get more and more of a kind of very bright and quite light, juicy orangey character out of the beer. So yeah, this is really interesting. I wonder if it could be a little bit of Victoria's Secret in this. It doesn't quite have the pungency of Galaxy, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of Victoria's Secret in that, and it's not quite soft enough for kind of Idaho 7, I don't think. And Idaho 7 would be a bit more complex on those softer tropical fruits as well. So I think Victoria's Secret could be one of the ones in this, and the orangey side of things, I don't know. It has got this lovely kind of bright, juicy orangey side to it as well, which is interesting. But yeah, aroma-wise, the fruity side of this beer is quite nice. A big juicy orange, and then you've got a bit more of a kind of complex, tropically vibe to it as well. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to ponder over the aroma of these beers before you get stuck into them. But I think it is about time that we had a taste of this one then. So yeah, this one is the Rivers, a New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg here in Sweden, and Track Brewing from Manchester over in England. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah. Now, first impression of this one. Very smooth, oaty leaning New England IPA, this one. This is leaning towards the creamy end of the New England spectrum. And I like it. I do like this one. What I'm going to say about it though is it's not the most, it's one of the, it really is one of the kind of more smooth and subtle New England IPAs that I've had from either of these breweries that I can think of. It's been a while since I've had a beer from Track, right enough. Something I need to sort when I'm back home in Scotland this time maybe. But yeah, it's a very smooth and kind of oaty leaning New England IPA, this one. I do like how this goes together. It's quite different from the other ones I've had in recent times, in fairness. It's definitely not the zippiest one that I've had. I think quite a few of the other New England IPAs I've had in recent times have been a wee bit more sort of zippy and things and stuff. But you see this, the IPA, you know, for some reason all the breweries at the same time, you know, they kind of, you go through a period where a lot of the IPAs are quite bitey and wheaty, then you go to a period where they're a bit more kind of creamy and so on. You see this going on in the brewing and the sort of craft beer world, but this is definitely a more oaty and creamy and smooth New England IPA, but it's very, very nice. It is quite similar to what I remember Track beers being. I couldn't tell you the last time I had a Track IPA, come to think of it. So, yeah. This is pretty damn solid actually. I really like how this I do really like how this goes together. So on the how do we say? We'll go through the beer and break it down as we always do. Middle third of the palate, you get that nice little bit of bread crust in the base. So you've got a lovely little bit of a bread crusty base there. That's the backbone of the beer. On top of that, you can feel the kind of soft, fluffy white bread. And in fairness, it actually feels as if it has a good little bit of density to it, which I like. You can feel that the white bread has a wee bit of density. Then on top of that, you can feel the wheat, and the wheat is actually quite smooth in this one. That's kind of interesting. So yeah, the wheat in this one is not as bitey. I have to say that this beer is a little bit different. The way that the malt base goes together is a wee bit different in some ways than what I thought it'd be from the aroma. So the middle of your palate's actually quite straight up in this one. So yeah, you get that. You get a little bit of the bread crusty base. You can feel the soft white bread, but it's quite dense at the same time. On top of that, you get a bit of the smooth wheat, and then on top of all of that, you've got a nice kind of smooth, creamy, oaty character to this one. The oats aren't quite as thick as I thought they were going to be. And that's one thing I do have to say about this beer too, is that it's not as thick as I thought it was going to be from the aroma. But I do like how it's going together, for sure. Yeah. It is nice, this, actually. So you get that nice big, you do get that nice big oaty, you get a nice kind of smooth oaty creaminess out of this one, which I think is pretty good. But yeah, this beer, it doesn't really have such a big sweet element. There's maybe like a teeny little hint in the middle of the palate. You've got like a circle there, and you can feel the oaty creaminess. And the oats actually are they're kind of creamy, but you can feel they're starting to get a little bit drier. And remember, oats are usually an indicator of how old your New England IPA is, how fresh it is. You can feel at the edges of the palate they're starting to get a wee bit drier. But yeah, I do like how it all goes together in that sense. So yeah, you do get a wee bit of a biscuity sweetness in the middle of your palate with this one, which I do quite like. So yeah, there's a nice kind of smooth oatiness. Yeah, there is a nice, there's a really nice smooth oaty character to this one. But yeah, you do get a little hint of like McVitie's digestive biscuit the further into the aftertaste that you go, but really no, there's not too big a sweet element to this one. And that thing I was picking up in the aroma, the sort of Skittle-like aroma, the Parma Violet, sorry. I don't really get much of that in the flavour. This really is an oaty, kind of smooth, creamy leaning New England IPA, and I like it. I do like this. So let's yeah, let's leave it at that for the middle third of the palate. I don't think there's anything else we need to say. Back third of the palate then, the border region between middle and back third of your palate. Again, you do get a wee bit of a bready build up in there. Yeah, there's a wee bit of bready build up for sure. The base, the base of the back third of the palate is a little bit more, you can feel a little bit of bread crust. You get a more dense, you do get a more dense white bready sort of thing there, so you can feel that. It does feel a little bit thicker and it's a wee touch more grainy. You can feel on the back third of the palate, on top of that, you start to get some of the bitey, wheaty character out of this. So yeah. So yeah, you get that bitey, you do get that bitey, wheaty character out of this one, which is kind of interesting. And that, it lingers into the aftertaste a wee bit, that, but on top of everything, you're getting the more yeasty notes, so you can feel that more dense, doughy, white, you can feel that more dense, doughy, white bready sort of thing. And it's got a wee bit of the kind of dry bread crusty character around the edge, so yeah, little bit of a, bread crust, thicker white bready layer, wheaty bitiness, then the kind of yeasty character on top. So on the back third of the palate, it feels, the flavour feels a little bit taller, and then as you come forward into the middle third of the palate, it just condenses down a little bit, and the flavour just squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, I do like how this beer, goes about its business in that sense. The malty side of this one I think is done really nicely, and as I say, it's striking me a little bit because it's quite different from the other beers I've had in this style category in recent times. But yeah, on the on the hoppy side of things then, brain is not working today. Middle in the on the hoppy side of things then, the green component, back corners of the palate, you do get a little bit of earthiness. As you move further forward, it gets, it really starts to build a nice big sort of floral aromaticity. I really like how that goes together. So yeah, nice big sort of floral aromaticity. That's really nice. And the thing is, the floral aromaticity that you get out of this, I was expecting it to be a wee bit drier, but it's actually got quite a bit of wetness to it and a wee bit of an oily character. Round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of, you've got a more oily grassiness to this one. I don't find the grassy character awfully zesty, but it's more like a wet kind of grassiness. So you've got that big, yeah, you do have a nice little bit of that floral aromatic type quality to it as well. And I think it goes together. It does go together very, very nicely in that sense. So the green component for me is a bit more wet and slightly oily, which I do, which I do like. It kind of matches quite well. Having that slightly more oily green component really matches the oaty creaminess in this beer quite well, so I do like that. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the green component. Let's focus on the front third of the palate, the fruity side of things then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up there. There's a base on the front third of the palate, so you get a little bit of the breadiness there, but you can also feel a wee bit of the oaty smoothness, and on top of that you get the nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the fruity side as well is not quite as big and oily. It's actually quite a wet fruity character you get from this one. So yeah, if you go toward the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a wee bit of the passion fruit, but then as you come further forward, it's almost like you've got a wee bit of an apricot-y base to the back half of that front third of your palate. So you get a wee bit of an apricot-y base. As you move toward the kind of front half, you maybe get a little bit of pineapple, but on top of that there's a more kind of light juicy mango sort of thing. But the further you go into the aftertaste with it, it's those dry apricot and slightly pineapple-y notes I think that come out of this beer. I would be very curious to know what hop that is. Victoria's Secret, pardon me, comes to mind. But yeah, it's an interesting one, that. So yeah, a little bit of passion fruit, kind of drier apricot-y and pineapple notes underneath, wee bit of mango on top. And as you go into the front half, or the front third of the palate, you do get a wee bit of a more orangey, tangerine sort of thing, and then there's a wee bit of a kind of zesty, yeah, there is a wee bit of a more like zesty, kind of lemony character to it as well. But yeah, I think this is quite an interesting beer, this one. It's got a wee bit more zip on the lemony limey citrusy side of things than I expected it to have. So this is one of these beers where the aroma does differ a fair wee bit from the flavour, and the sort of nuances of the flavours come out a bit differently compared to what you would expect. But it's a very nice New England double IPA, this one. I would recommend this. If you get the chance to try it, you won't regret this beer. You won't regret buying this one. It's nice and it's really solidly done. So big thumbs up to both breweries. Let's just round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, I'd say kind of toward, it's sort of right in the middle of the spectrum toward top end of mid body, but it actually feels quite light for some of the, compared to some of the other New England IPAs I've had. It has got an element of creaminess to it, but at the same time it's got an element of clean, cleanness, yeah, can we say that? And it has a wee bit of wetness to it as well, so I like that. In terms of IBUs, this is definitely, a standard sort of 30 IBU New England IPA. The malty side of things is, really quite smooth, and it's got quite a creamy character to it. Not really a sweetness in the malt base of this one. The green component, as I said, leans towards the floral side of things, and I think that does get a wee bit more pungent, if you like, the further into the aftertaste you go. Then you've got a really nice kind of juicy, fruity character to this beer. But overall, I really like how this one. I do really like how this one goes about its business. It's a solid New England double IPA, this one, and it's kind of what we would expect from both breweries, but one of the more oaty, creamy ones I've had in recent times. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this. This was the Rivers, an 8.5% New England double IPA from Stigbergets in Gothenburg here in Sweden, and Track from Manchester in England. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets and Track, and we will no doubt return to both of these breweries at some point in the near future. But in the meantime, check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys on the next review. Slàinte, Scott, cheers, and thank you for all your support. Ciao just now.